Hello, people. Welcome to the show, Lee R. Cole 3 podcast. And I got James Proctor and Tommy Stiggs with me. How you guys doing today?
Hello, Lee. How are you? We're good. I'm good.
Hey, doing great.
Well, we're going to chop it up a little bit. We're going to, Mikey Scars. I'm going to ask you guys both, I want your honest opinion. Uh, don't pull no punches. We'll start with James first. What's your opinion on Mikey Scars?
No, I mean, I like what I'm hearing from him because, it's nice to get another perspective of history. For me personally, for 30 years, we've only heard two sides. It's either been Sammy's or the Fed. So it's nice to get another insider to give a different perspective.
And Tommy, what do you think of Mikey DiLeonardo?
Well, from what I'm seeing, what I like about it is the fact that he owns up to it. He's not. He's just not acting like an animal, like a gavone, so to speak. That's how we would say it. So, and he's not on the defense. He's owning up to what he did. So you got to kind of respect that. Not respect what he did, obviously, but respect the way he's doing it now.
And here's what I think the difference is. Mikey Scars owns up to the decision. He owns up to the decision he made. He has always called it a punk move, and he regrets making the move.
Right.
Sammy continues to make excuses for betraying Omerta, and this is what really is. When you go through all the history, we will talk about what set of Mikey Scars off regarding Sammy, because he's been getting set off a lot lately by things Sammy's been saying, and we're going to learn about that. And don't you guys find it a pleasure though that we actually have somebody on here that was actually with Sammy and can correct him on some stuff that he puts out there now?
Yeah, it makes a whole different. It just changes everything because there was like
Yeah.
James was saying, we had only one voice to hear from, which I didn't tune in very often. In the beginning, it was a little bit, interesting, and then I could just see where it was going. So it just like James said, adds a different spin to it, where you get a good, clear, and you could tell an honest picture of what actually was going on. So.
And I think another thing, Mikey Scars does not consider himself still part of the life.
Right.
Nope.
Whereas Sammy still acts like, what is he, the Don of YouTube? Is that what he
Yeah,
wants?
Dawn of social media, Dawn of YouTube. Yeah, it's just,
Unbelievable.
it's a
And,
joke. Yeah.
and when he does interviews now, when he sets up interviews, and this was told by Jeff Nadeau, that he basically, part of his agreement is you got to say to him during the interview, you got to call him the Don of YouTube or the media. So, that's part of the agreement now if you want to do an interview with him. But okay, so what do you think of these live shows? He's doing these live shows, and Mikey Scars is taking him apart on statements that he keeps making. And this originally started because one of the quotes that Sammy made. Sammy came out and started with Mikey Scars. And he came out and said Mikey Scars is pretty much, he was a hanger arounder. And then Mikey Scars came back with, yes, I was a hanger arounder. I hung around John Gotti. I thought that was a beautiful comeback.
Yeah.
And so now, do you consider Mikey Scars just a hanger arounder? Would you consider him a serious guy back then, Tommy?
Serious, of course, 100% serious. He had things going on everywhere. He was in Jersey. He had stuff going on with the Union in East Orange, New Jersey, which is just a couple towns over. He was everywhere. A hang around. Apparently, he was respected, and he has 125 years. I think it's 100 years of that in his blood. He's
Family
not a
lineage.
newcomer. He was not a newcomer to the culture or the life. Whereas you can say Sammy was the first. He didn't have that.
Right. He was the
You know,
first one in his family and the last one because of what he did.
yeah.
And
So there's a
that.
whole different type of mentality there.
And James, what do
Right.
you think when we talk about uh, Mikey Scars?
Yeah, no, I mean, he definitely has the history and the heritage, the lineage, and so he understands that. It's just with Sammy, it became apparent that as you learn more and more about what Sammy was doing, is more for selfish motivation. It wasn't for
Yes,
Cosa Nostra.
exactly.
And that's one of the things I'm going to play the video just so people know.
Yeah.
RJ and Mikey Scars gave me permission to use the video today, which I
nice.
like to thank them for that because they haven't done that before. And
You see, you would never get that from anybody else.
right, exactly. I actually wanted to use a piece of video from a Sammy video one time, and I called up his office, and Sammy called me back and told me he wanted to put his foot up my ass. That was I answered the phone.
There you go.
I was like, Sammy's calling me. What the fuck? And so Sammy does listen to these little shows. You know, things get to him. They get underneath his skin. He's not like Michael Franzese. Michael Franzese, you can say whatever you want about Michael Franzese. He ain't coming back at you.
So reality bothers him. So, he's carrying that. And you know what? They should carry it like that. He should carry it like that. If he has it's pent up. It's built up inside them. The ones that act out that way are the ones that it's really eating at them.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to start this. We have some of the marks. Let me get this up here.
Oh, look at that. Wow.
Okay, so I'm going to start from the 12-minute mark. We can't do this whole thing. We'll be here forever. I like to make this series into 2 parts, to be honest with you. Yeah. This is really interesting stuff. I've watched I've seen a lot of Mikey Scars stuff coming out. And I would never platform him because I made a commitment not to platform people that I have informed, but I will listen to him because he teaches people like me a lot about the mob. Is he teaching you guys? Would you say that you're learning from him some of the things he's saying, Tommy?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's being delivered in a gentlemanly way, and it bothers him, but he's delivering it. He doesn't have to remember anything. He's not fighting with anybody. He's just telling what it is. So it's refreshing. James, I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, no, same way, and also just in this particular video that we're about to see, what you see RJ looking at is the book Underboss that Peter Moss had written with Sammy, and so he's really using Sammy's words that he said in that book against him, and then this is what is set off Mikey Scars.
Okay, I'm going to start that right now, guys. I'm going to play a couple minutes of it. I'm sorry, Tommy. What was that?
Yeah, that goes back to what James said before we're going into this segment about we only had one side of it before. So sure, I had that book, what was it, 10, 12, 15 years ago? And that was the only side that we had.
Yes, so we had Sammy's side. And that's
go ahead.
Okay, and here we go, and we'll start this right here.
I really felt that I belonged to a brotherhood that had honor and respect. All the things I looked for.
Just so you know, he's reading a quote from Sammy's book. Sammy saying this.
Okay.
In life was in good part of that oath. A lot later on, I got to learn that the whole thing was bullshit. I mean, we broke every rule in the book. Like at one of the trials, a lawyer asked me, "How could you break the oath of Omerta?" And I responded, "There's 100 rules. We broke 99 of them. This was the last rule." And I quote, "It wasn't hard anymore to break in his oath." It wasn't hard anymore. I said at the beginning of our show, that's probably the easiest thing Sammy did. You respond how you want to respond.
And just so you know, this is the first time
wow.
that Mikey Scars has heard this.
Okay. Oh, now, okay. He didn't read the book.
The first time he's ever heard this.
Right.
And
all right.
That's what makes it interesting, his response.
Yeah.
Wow, you threw a real deep one on me.
So here's my question essentially. Why would someone that had the history that we know Sammy has in the Gravano family, you can take him out of it or leave him in it. Why would a person with that history have compunction over sitting on the stand and cooperating? That doesn't seem to me as an outsider as hard as having to kill my brother-in-law, having to kill my childhood friends.
Okay.
Wow.
First of
Oh,
all,
wow.
Sammy didn't have history because I equate history with lineage. Sammy had from when he started, whatever the age he said he came around, till he flips. November 14th, 91 is when he flipped. I believe that was the date, if I get it right. So that's the first 302 he put out. So I think it's the first day he flipped. Very interesting, because I guess I'm wrong, right? I guess that Sammy would be very hard for him. And
It was
his
very hard for you.
no, we're talking about him. Never mind.
Yeah.
Here.
Okay.
All right, we're talking about his words. He says, "What's the difference? I broke the 100th one."
Yeah.
And he says he had no problem doing it, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, hold on. Let's just make sure I quote him right.
Yeah.
He says, yes. He says, it wasn't hard anymore.
Okay.
Wow.
So I guess the passion that he had for that life wasn't true. It was false. You can't, because somebody talks about you, an individual, one individual. Are we correct? It's John Gotti when he heard those tapes. There's almost 1,000 guys that have made guys, Jersey, New York, and all over the country. 1,000 made guys. How could you really certify that by saying it don't matter anymore? You didn't take an oath to John Gotti. You didn't take the guy to pinch your finger, Tato. And Paul Castellano was the boss at the time. You didn't take an oath to them. We talked about this before. You took it to an entity, an ideology, something that goes back hundreds of years.
Wow.
So what
That's
he's
great.
saying, what he's saying here, he's saying that Sammy didn't take an oath to John Gotti. He took an oath to the system, the way to Omerta. He took a oath to that, and he's blaming John Gotti for the reason that he became a rat. So what do you guys think about that? Starting with James first.
Interesting.
Yeah, this was very powerful, and you know, I
Yes.
didn't really think about it that way until I heard it from the perspective of someone that was an insider, and the amount of, you know, disrespect that showed for the rest of the folks that are in that life, but also how he was equating, you know, that because 99 other rules were broken, what's the difference of breaking this final one? But we realized later as we listened to this that Omerta is really the only rule. All the other items are just policies. And so that was something I learned.
Very well said, James.
Yes.
James is a corporate guy, so he understands what policies are. And
Yeah.
so, Tommy, what would you say about what?
That's very well said, James. That's really well said. Yeah. So when you take that oath, you take an oath to Omerta first. Everything else goes along with it. If we ask you to kill your brother, you're going to kill your brother. It goes with it. The one thing they do not break is the code. You can't take it sensitive. You might be the one on a chopping block. It may be John Gotti that was going to clip him. Who knows who it's going to be? But you're supposed to own that and walk to your grave after you're told to walk to it. It's just how it's supposed to be.
Yep.
So, hearing that for the first time, Tommy? What do you think about that? When you
Hearing that for the first time goes back to what I just said about the history that he has, that Mikey has in it. The lineage is what he said, right? Is that what he said? The bloodline is there. Yes. So he knows it in his soul, Mikey.
And Mikey, so it had to be really tough for Mikey DiLeonardo for Michael DiLeonardo to flip, because he knew that all this history in his family, he was basically shaming the name of his family that upheld these rules and these laws in Omerta, and he wasn't able to. So that has to be very weighing on him when you think about it. Would you say that?
I think he just made. I think it was a momentary bad decision at that moment for Mikey. I think he was clouded maybe for a minute. I'm not speaking for anybody, but It was a moment of weakness, I'm going to think. I
And
don't know about a
and
moment of
Tommy,
filthy.
the FBI, they're going to sense when you have that moments of weakness, and they're going to
Yeah.
they're going to move in.
Oh, they swarm in. Yeah, that's one.
So we're going to go to another
Wow.
part here, and
Interesting.
yeah, very interesting stuff, ain't it?
Very interesting. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to go to the 20-minute mark. Let me start this up.
It lays at your feet. So all this stuff about somebody else made me do it is nonsense. You don't break that rule. You don't break that rule of Omerta. You just don't do it. Everything else is policy. That's a rule. That's the one standard, solid rule.
Wow.
And, I would like to hear some feedback on this, on my position, by anybody. By anybody. I would love to hear your opinions back.
Wow. That's interesting. Wait, you're muted. You're muted, Lee.
I'm sorry. Okay. So Mikey Scars wants your opinion. So here you guys are going to have an opportunity to give Mikey your opinion. James, let's start with you. What's your opinion on what he just said?
Yeah, I mean, it's just you have to take accountability for any decision that you make. In this decision, Sammy decided to cooperate, so he could either own up to it, like Mikey has done, where he said it was a punk move, or do as Sammy does, just blame John Gotti, blame Cosa Nostra, blame other people instead of taking accountability. So that's what I see from that. So I think Mikey's 100% straight on this.
Okay. And Tommy, what would your
So,
opinion? What would you tell Mikey?
oh wow. So
He's
Sammy's
going to
breaking.
look, just so you know, Tommy, I'm sure he's going to look at this. So he's going to hear you right now. Tell him.
I have no idea if he values our opinions or
He
not.
does.
We're just having a nice little show here and talking about it.
Yep.
I think he's pretty accurate when he says about, he says what he say? He said blaming somebody else, right? Blaming somebody else.
Blaming
So
someone else.
Cosa Nostra, from the beginning of time, obviously Sammy was part of the policies, killing the inner workings of it, killing a boss, killing somebody else. So now the policies don't apply to you now anymore because it's time for you to save your ass because somebody else spoke out of school, is what we kind of say. Yeah, no, he's right on with that. He's accurate about, in my opinion. He's very accurate and on point with that.
Well,
That breaks
and
it down perfectly.
yeah, and one of the things that we forget is that it was in December of '90 when they were picked up
Yeah,
at and then Sammy didn't flip until November of '91, and so it was 11 months, and
yeah,
so and they played the tapes, at the very beginning when they were picked up. So, he waits 11 months to decide to cooperate. Something's off there. But it's just it really comes down to Sammy just didn't want to go to jail, and he had it very good with John Gotti. Everything that Sammy got was because he was with John Gotti. He would not have gotten this power if if Paul was still the boss.
yeah,
And I show you that picture because he's going to talk about, these three guys here. You got Frankie Lock in the back.
yeah.
Is that how you say it? Would you say local Lock? Frankie Lock.
Frankie Lock.
Frankie Lock. Then you got Sammy there in the middle. Look at the big smile on his face. All three of these guys got a smile. Sammy looks like he's
He didn't belong there. He didn't belong there. He did not belong there.
Yep, he definitely didn't belong there. I think he should have been behind Frankie Lock. But anyway, okay, so I'm going to play some more of this, guys.
Especially the guys that did what I did. Justify. We can't justify. You lose your street creds. You lose being a gangster. Sammy still talks like a gangster. Sammy's the Don. The Don of what? The Don of what? What do you have? That's how I know he had no passion for that life. No matter what he said, I was disappointed. I was this, I was that. You were disappointed. What about the families you killed? What about their families and the guys you killed? You're disappointed? Because John talked bad about you. Or anybody. Could be anybody. Anybody in this life. Myself.
Yeah.
They broke me. Wrong. Wrong. Say it again. Not supposed to happen.
Wow.
I'll own that mistake. So there is no excuses. That's how this name came about here. I felt a passion for that name because I don't want to ever escape what I did with an excuse.
That's great. You're muted again. You're muted.
Guys, I hate that. I always mess up with that. Guys, have you ever heard anybody explain being in what a rat or informant is? The way he's explaining it now, the way he's just taking total responsibility. He's not laying it, because all these informants that you see in here, they all have an excuse why they informed. This man has no excuse.
He don't
So,
make
James, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's the closest that I've seen anyone in that life that's cooperated actually take responsibility for it. And he knows it's going to be with him for the rest of his life. And so, you know, it's refreshing to see that. We've seen so many people on here, you know, make excuses for the reason they did. Well, they killed my friend, or they, you know, my boss was talked bad about me. So, you know, everyone has an excuse for, you know, for cooperating. But Mikey accepted it. He says a punk move, and he lives with it. But, you know, I appreciate him, you know, actually taking accountability and responsibility for it.
And Tommy, what would you say before you move on to our next? Do you think
no excuse? I mean, that's just it doesn't get any better than that. As far and that platform, it gets no better than that. You could see how he's delivering everything he's saying. It's coming from his heart, his soul, and you know, you could tell there's no defense mechanism built up in him. He doesn't have to. He doesn't have a. You know, he doesn't have to blame anybody. He's
Now,
just
okay, guys,
delivering it right.
I'm gonna ask you another question. You're gonna have people say, "Well, Lee and James and Tommy, they're all kissing Michael Dileonardo's ass." What do you got
We
to
didn't
say
get to that point yet. We didn't get there yet. We'll get there.
Okay, and James, what do you have to say if someone comes up and says that we're bending over backwards for?
Nope.
And I'm not, you know.
Not at all.
Right. No, this is about history. And so,
Yeah.
at least for me, you know, I'm not someone that's been on the street. I'm not that type of person. Never been arrested. But, you know, I'm a lover of history. I like the history of true crime and Cosa Nostra. And so for me, when I see it, I'm looking at it as history. This is a big deal because for 30 years, we've only heard one side of the story until RJ and Mikey started this series of analysis of the tapes about 3 months ago. So,
and when you
it's
talk
great
about,
stuff.
you know, RJ
Yeah.
made a decision on who to pick out to do a show with.
hmm
It seems like to me that he thought it out and he made the right choice.
Michael, you mean Michael picked?
Well, I mean, no, RJ had to decide whether he was going to be partners, because
Oh,
RJ
okay.
knows that he's going to get hit for
Yeah.
being partners with an informant.
Mhm.
He knows this. So do you think that he picked the one that he should pick out to explain what being a rat is and what it does to you?
Yeah, because he has no skin in the game of this. He's delivering history that he's obsessed with, that he loves to do. So what better can he do? He owns this now. He's got it. He made the right decision. And we're just talking history right here, guys. We're not
Yeah, exactly.
complimenting anybody. We're not kissing up to anybody, because I don't really care. I don't have to kiss up to this guy. He doesn't care if I kiss. Nobody cares. It's just delivering history, and we're discussing it, right?
Now let's take RJ Rogers out of this, and let's say RJ said, okay, he got a hold of Sammy and said, Sammy, let's do this great show. And Sammy made his show, no excuses. Just thinking of that is funny. So that's the
RJ wouldn't go for it. He
yeah,
knows
can you
better.
picture RJ Rogers asking Sammy these questions? He's asking, it's obvious that Michael's an intelligent man and Sammy's not. So
Yeah.
he picked the right person to be asking these questions of. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, and Sammy wouldn't have answered those questions, and even for good or for bad, then they do interview of Sammy. It sounded like that it caused a big falling out. That Sammy doesn't want anything to do with him because a couple of the questions weren't what he wanted to hear. So,
And a lot of people say, okay, Jeff Nadeau interviewed Sammy, and it was it wasn't hard hitting, but yet here's Sammy thinking that it was hard hitting.
yeah,
So how soft does
exactly.
Sammy want you to be if you're going to interview him?
Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
So Tommy,
Yeah.
how would you like to get Sammy in a room and sit down and interview him, ask him give me an idea. What would be a question you would ask him, Tommy, if you had Sammy in front of you?
I think I would just go deep into his soul. I want to know what it felt like. What was it? What was in your mind? What was in your brain? Why'd you have to come here and testify against 36 others? Is that what you agreed upon? There's so many different.
And by
I
here,
couldn't sit down. I don't think I could do it. I wouldn't be able to sit down
and
with
by
somebody like
here
that.
you mean New Jersey, because he went to people don't realize Sammy went and testified on guys in New Jersey also, didn't he?
Well, the power was what the power was. While John was locked up, they were considering sending the power to Belleville, New Jersey, which was Bobby Cabert was the captain in our neighborhood. He was a Gambino captain. So the power was being discussed for the power to shift over to here because nobody was hit yet over here. They were doing damage control over there. John was thinking smart. He's like, let me get it out of the area, send it over to Jersey. They got everything under control over there. Boom. It comes out. Sammy's here. Now he's testifying against Cabert, Bobby Cabert Passaccia. And then Bobby Cabert ended up getting life and dying in his cell also. So,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, let's go. We're gonna move on to another part, people, and we'll dissect this. And I appreciate the way you guys are taking it apart right now. I like it. This is perfect. Thank you, guys.
Good.
Going to John with it. John's now saying, hey, if I keep saying no to every murder, I may look like a punk. What John should have done was say, hold it up. I'll deal with this. Let's talk about this a little more. Let me dive into this. Even though it was on Sammy's guys he was killing, still belonged to the family. They belong to John. So John's position, one of the mistakes, I really didn't want to go here with this, but I'll say it. One of John's huge mistakes was not stopping this guy from pissing in his ear and killing people. So it's a little different getting an order. Yes, John okayed what Sammy brought to the table. That's the difference. Then Sammy coming to me or Joe Watts coming to me or anybody, all the other guys say, we got to do a piece of work. And you don't ask why. You're not supposed to. If they don't want to tell you, they tell you why. We say, we're going to kill that guy. Okay. When do I got to beat you? That's the way it goes.
But
Okay, so I think so he's saying that Sammy Gravano had John Gotti's ear. John Gotti respects Sammy Gravano because he was his underboss. And so if Sammy Gravano came to him and said someone had to be taken out, John didn't really argue about it. And he went and took him out. And now you have Mikey Scars saying what he should have done is questioned. He didn't realize how bad Sammy was taking advantage of him. Would you say that's right? Starting with James.
Yeah, that's definitely it. Plus, John was more of an overseer of the whole family, and so he left Sammy in charge of. He didn't want to be involved in the union discussions. He didn't want to get involved in the minutia, so that's why he had Sammy to do that. And so, yeah, I mean that's exactly the case.
Okay, Tommy, what do you think about it?
yeah, John was just following what did you say before, James? The system. He was following the system that is set up. Your underboss keeps you informed.
Yeah.
And brings to you, and you're hoping that by your choice of making him underboss or somebody making him underboss, that he's following the steps. So it got so far so fast before John could probably put the brakes on.
And I'll give you an example. And James explained this. Louis DeBono.
Yeah.
He gets killed in the garage at. He gets two guys whack him in the garage at the Trade Center.
Yeah, World Trade Center. Yeah.
Now Sammy's hated them his whole life. They have had a feud, and all of a sudden they become business partners.
Yeah.
And now Sammy goes back to John Gotti and tells him, "Look, we're not making any money here because of this guy." And then he says, so in the beginning, John Gotti said to him, "Well, let's wait." Then John Gotti calls him in, and this guy has a feeling something's going to happen to him, and he doesn't come in.
Right.
And that's that. So this is the beginning. This is a partner of Sammy's. So James, why don't you start off and tell us something about
yeah. So
Louis
this
DeBono.
was so this was 1990. So this was the last murder on Sammy's 19 murders that he's part of. And so the issues that Sammy's had has been for years. So back in the 70s, when Paul was the boss, he had accused DeBono of stealing from the family in front of him in a sit down. And so Sammy almost got killed, and he had actually asked to kill DeBono, a made man, and Paul wouldn't do it. And so DeBono was a big deal. He was, one of the things about Sammy was that he was big into construction. Louis DeBono was also. So Louis DeBono was controlling the construction in the World Trade Center at the time. And so, they got into business together, and Sammy was pissed off. He goes to John, gets permission to take him out. And so they find him dead in the parking lot of the World Trade Center.
And so who was it that took over his business?
Sammy.
Oh, Sammy did.
Okay, and we're starting with this one, and we're going to break it up a little bit. Tommy, what do you think about this hit that
This was a grudge and a greed hit. That's all that this was. You could sum it up in 2 words: a grudge and greed. That's it.
That's not Cosa Nostra.
Sammy basically waited for 10 years
Oh my god!
to kill
that's
this
crazy.
guy
Out of grudge.
out of a grudge. But now, see, and we're going to go back because Sammy doesn't just kill for grudges. Let's not. Okay, I'm going to put this up, James, and tell us what's going on here, James.
Yeah, so that's Mikey DeBat. So they'd been friends since the 70s. So actually, from the days that before Sammy was actually made, and so this guy was very important to Sammy's crew, and so he participated in the killing of Frank Fiala, the guy that Sammy's talked about, the bar that he sold to this guy. So he killed that guy. Mikey killed several people for Sammy. And so, but then what happened was he got addicted to crack cocaine. And Mikey knew that drugs was a no-no. So he was fearful of getting murdered by his own men. And he was right. And so his wife, this is Mikey DeBat's wife, actually approached Sammy, pleading for help for her husband. Get him some help. But instead of helping, Sammy coldly decided to have Mike DeBat killed when he was no longer useful for Sammy.
And Tommy, what do you think about what James just said?
One word: opportunist.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and now we're going to go beyond the opportunity. We're going to go to the next phase, and we're going to bring someone else up. And this guy's a pretty popular guy right here. And James, why don't you tell us about DB?
Yeah, so he was one of the capos that was involved. I don't think he was a capo at the time, but he's one of the ones that was involved in the planning of the hit on Big Paul. And so DB was interesting that he had a lot of influence and power. He had all the Times Square porn, but he didn't have a crew underneath him. But he brought millions of dollars to the family. And so anyway, it was very strange. Gravano asked Gotti to have him killed, and then Gravano.
Where was John at this time when he asked?
Yeah, he was in jail at the time.
All right.
This
This is basically
prisons.
Sammy saying that he asked John while he was in jail.
Yeah, and he was saying that Angelo Ruggiero had, I guess they had some sort. Angelo Ruggiero, Quack Quack, supposedly was told Sammy that DiBernardo was talking behind his back, and that's just DB was not that type of person. He was very low key. He was loyal to Sammy and to friends to Sammy, loyal to John. So that never happened. Supposedly there's $300,000 that Angelo had borrowed from DiBernardo, didn't want to pay it back. I don't think that's true. It's just that besides the porn stuff, DB also had some of the rackets dealing with unions and so forth, and that's what Gravano wanted to have. And so,
And-
yep, he set him up and had him killed.
Okay, and who took over his business after he was dead?
It was Sammy.
Tommy. Another move by Sammy, huh?
Unbelievable. So did Angelo? Is it fact that Angelo got into Sammy's ear, or just Sammy was just saying that and taking a shot
Yeah,
as
and
a lie?
that's something we don't know. And
Because
so
Sammy says it, and we know
Right,
Sammy
right.
said it.
Sammy likes to say that dead people did
Yes.
things.
Yeah, and Angelo was dead, but look at what Gotti did. What John
Oh
Gotti
wait,
did.
Angelo was dead already. Angelo was already dead.
Yeah, he had died from
Yeah.
cancer, and so but Gotti
No, but
could have
Angelo
had
was
him.
still no.
Yeah,
1 second. Angelo was still alive
he
when
was there.
DB was killed.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But
That's a-
Sammy went to John
Mhm.
with this information. Was it bogus information about the 300,000?
well
make that
on
up?
on the tapes when John Gotti was talking about DB. That's what he said. He said that it was bogus information.
Yeah.
So you got to remember, and this is one thing that he talks about. Mikey Scars. He talks about the fact that he's listening to all the tapes now.
Mhm.
See, when you see him on TV and stuff, you're hearing little segments.
Yeah.
But if you listen to all of the tapes, it shows a different story.
Yeah.
And
Interesting.
Tommy,
Yeah, the
that's-
bottom line is Gotti was upset that he felt duped into allowing the murder of
Yeah.
DB. It was so Sammy could make more money for himself. That's what the bottom line was.
And Tommy, how would you like to finish that off before we move on to the next victim?
It just seems that, it seems that because John was actually just following the process, listening to his underboss. It's very simple. He couldn't confirm it. He
And
couldn't
how- you know
confirm
how-
it. He was in
and you-
jail. He was listening to his underboss.
And you know how good of friends they were? DB and him, Sammy, supposedly were tight like this.
Mhm.
But after he got shot in the head, they disposed of the body that was never found again. And when the family came to Sammy looking for their father or husband, he
Yeah.
lied to them. He point blank and said, "Oh, I'm going to go out there and look for them." And basically, though, after that, he never talked to them again. He blew them off. This guy was dead. Sammy wanted nothing to do with the family no more, even though he had something to do with the family all the time that DB was alive.
Yeah.
That's
So
a pretty
John was
cold
following
count-
the structure. John was following the structure, and Sammy was taking advantage of John following the structure.
without
Yeah,
a
because
doubt.
he's saying he was just saying bad stuff behind his back. So they didn't even bring
Unbelievable.
up the 300,000 or whatever that money was. That's just stuff that Sammy had mentioned in his video about that. But the only thing mentioned to John Gotti was that DB was talking behind his back, which
That's it.
that wasn't true. Hmm.
And now we're going to get on to the
Unbelievable.
next story. And this is more sad because this was Sammy's best friend. This was the guy that we grew up as a kid with Sammy out of the streets of New York. And he was betrayed. Okay. Once again, we're going to have James. James has done a lot of research in this, so we're going to put James to work. James, I've done videos on Louis.
Yeah.
Tell us what the story is here.
Yeah, and nothing new from this. Louis was Sammy's lifelong best friend. They were partners in crime. Pretty much all of Sammy's rise as in Cosa Nostra, Louis was there right with him. But then they had a big falling out because Sammy decided to name Louis Valerio as captain of his own crew instead of Louis Melito. And so supposedly Melito was devastated by the choice. He felt betrayed. And then supposedly Melito left Sammy's crew after that, had something else going on. But what Sammy did was he told John that Melito was a Castellano loyalist. And so they're saying that Melito was still defiant. He was complaining. And so the thing was, Gravano just wanted him dead. And
And
so
he had businesses also, and who took
he
him
had
over?
businesses with Louis Melito and took over the businesses. So this was another business move, and this was supposed to be Sammy's best friend, someone that was involved in all of these murders and a partner in crime for, at this point, what, this was 88, so
Yep.
18 years.
And just so people know, I'm showing this picture because this is out there in the public, and the whole family's grown up now. These are no longer kids. These are people in their 30s. The young kids are now in their 30s. And this is his wife. Now, the wife went to Louis. When they killed Louis, once again, Louis was set up by Sammy, went to meet him. They put a bullet in his head, and his body disappeared forever. And Louis was hung out with this family. He was close to this family. This was Sammy's best friend. So, what do you think about that, Tommy?
But I just think it's a matter of betrayal. But again, Louis was in their life, obviously. You know, they're in that life. The nuts and bolts, we're going by some of the research that you guys might populated or researched over the years. But you are in a treacherous type of lifestyle. Do we know if Louis ever did that to somebody? We don't know. But he took it too personal based on what you got, you know, what's being said. He took that decision really personal over, you know, over business. You're supposed to just go with the flow. Whatever they tell you to go with, you just go with the flow. And that's how you're supposed to do it.
And then when Sammy was talking about murdering John Doe, and John Doe was the kid Alan Kaiser. But pretty much, Sammy said, "I killed him," and then Sammy blamed it on Louis. Louis was with me. Louis blew the kid away because the kid was a drug addict running at me. So here we got. Is there anything Sammy won't do or say?
Doesn't sound like it.
If
Big
Sammy's
time
willing to
opportunist.
make it sound like a young kid's running at him because he's a crazy drug addict, that's what Sammy said in this video. Is there anything Sammy wouldn't say or do?
But based on some of the stuff that we hear here, and I don't know this as fact, but based on the stuff that we hear here, it just seems like Sammy was just running his own thing, playing a game, and you know, chess or checkers or whatever you want to call it. But he was just he was in it to win it.
Well, that's what the
basically it.
tapes were about. That's what you'll hear about the tapes, that Sammy was basically building an empire within an empire. So he wanted to have his own empire. And then what was interesting, just one thing about it, is that sounds like that Sammy really didn't push up money as you would think. It sounded like that John was complaining that he wasn't even pushing up money to the family. So I don't know.
Okay, we're going to play some more of this, guys, and then we'll get back to some more people that were betrayed by Sammy Gravano. There's so many of them.
Yeah.
The shooters, right? The 4 shooters on that, without all the other guys in the background. Isn't it told by Sammy that nobody knew the plot? Those guys did not. They knew that minute just before they went. If I'm not, am I mistaken?
No, that's true.
Okay.
He said that the shooters found out just before the hit. Well, they knew there was going to be a hit, but they didn't know who the target was.
It didn't matter. That's my point. It didn't matter who it was. You take an order to go, you go. That's different than what in Sammy's position go to John where Sammy was. Hope that's clear. If not, we'll do it again.
So I talked about this before, but for an outsider, it can be hard to understand some of these concepts. So I always try to break things down into more practical terms that the everyday working Joe can kind of understand the philosophy of what you're saying. So the example, when you said this to me, rang a bell in my head. So professionally, in the business world, I rose to the presidency. I had complete jurisdiction over the entire firm. I reported to one person, to the CEO/owner.
What RJ's doing here, and I like, is he's comparing the mafia as a business to what life he was in as a corporation, and he's breaking it down good. But Sammy was like that CEO that would come and lie on somebody and try to get that person fired. But unfortunately, in the mafia, it's different. You don't get fired; you get killed. So,
Yeah.
and we have to remember also another thing that's very important to remember: when Sammy got arrested and he decided to flip, he used the lame excuse, I'm not going to go after people in my crew. I'm not going to testify against anybody. No, because he kills the people in his crew.
Yeah.
Oh
He
my
doesn't.
God.
We just showed people that, two guys that were in his crew that died because Sammy had him killed. Okay, now I'm going to go to the 31-minute mark here.
I did not complain to him. Probably would never have been an issue to him if Frankie Lowe went out there. But it was cumulative with the information John was finding out. So now, if the people that are watching this on YouTube right now, you didn't hear the rest of the tape, the 12-12 tape. If you heard it, you'll understand where I'm going with it. Because
basically what he's talking about right now is Frankie Locke went out there. He's finding out information, and he's going back and telling John, look, Sammy's out of control. Is that what's happening, James?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So
Frankie Locke's caught up in this now. And he's discovering that Sammy's doing some devious stuff. It's getting back to John, and then John Gotti's like, wow, this guy has really done some stuff, and I fell for some of it. So how do you think a guy like John Gotti, a pure street guy, the boss of the family, how do you think he feels when it comes back to him that Sammy's building a family within that family?
Yeah, that's when he loses it. That's when he says, okay, something has to be done. Or he starts talking, and that's when he gets heard talking, I'm assuming. I don't know, but he probably rethinks it. It's like his CEO getting rid of his vice president.
Frankie Locke's in on those tapes too. And they're talking about something that they've done outside. They've researched Sammy. And so John Gotti wasn't talking about Sammy just for the sake of talking about him. They had a problem. They've discovered that Sammy, and this is what's great about about Mikey Scars coming out. He's putting a twist to this that we've never heard before. The only thing we heard is from Sammy from books and on TV, and he's the messenger. Now we have a new messenger. Do you think that's pretty accurate?
I do. I think opportunist until this day. It appears we said opportunist in all those clips, all those hits. Opportunist up until the moment that he's challenged, and that is now.
Okay. And I'm going to play some more of this.
It really gets opened up, and Frankie Lowe opens up himself in the rest of those tapes. And was it 6 more, 7 more? What was it?
That night was 7 complete tapes. It's about 8 hours of recording we have.
So we did one. YouTube people seen that. They didn't hear the other 6.
Yeah. Well, there's a total of 8 we have out. One's out, so there's 7 more available right now. Yeah.
Well, one's November 30th.
Yes, one's November, but there's 6 more with the 12-12 tapes. Yes.
So if they heard that, they would understand a little bit more what I'm saying, where John's coming from, not where I'm coming from. What John's saying, I just expand on it to let people know this is what's in his mind, as far as I could see. It's his words, not mine. So, when you're in that position, you have the power of life and death. As a soldier, you have the power of life and death, right? You got to check in with your skipper. And your skipper, you have much more power than that soldier of life and death. And if you're in administration, if Sammy has for life, or Joe Gallo has for life, or anybody in that Frankie Lowe asked for life. John's going to say, yeah.
Yeah.
But when
Hey, Lee.
You'll always hear the thing that John Gotti had these people killed. Yes, he's responsible because he's the boss. But at the same time, he's trusting the people around him, especially the people in high positions. And now you got Sammy out there knocking off all his buddies. Let's get back to another buddy. Why don't you tell us the story, what's going on with this guy right here?
Yeah, so that's Nicky. That's Nicky Cowboy, and so he's also known as Nick Mormondo. So
And he was a family. He was a family member.
Yeah, he was a longtime member of Sammy's crew, and again, he was another one that supposedly got an addiction to crack cocaine. But he was a big hitman for Sammy. He was a trigger guy, and so he was there on that Fiala hit that we talked about. But they're saying that he was supposedly doing scores without paying Sammy. Supposedly spending thousands of dollars on drugs, and so is again supposedly Nicky was doing stuff on the side, and so it was just kind of hearsay. So anyway, he basically had to get rid of him, and so he went to Gotti, got permission, and old man Peruta killed him back to the head.
No, that was in 70. He went to was that
86.
Gotti in 78? No, that was Castellano.
No, this was 86 for Mormondo.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Or Nicky Cowboy. Sorry. If I
That's my
said
fault.
76.
That's my fault. Yeah.
Okay.
My fault. I'm sorry. I mixed the names up.
Yeah.
Okay. So 1986, and it was personal revenge, and it's a friend.
Yeah. Another friend.
So it's according to Sammy, all his friends become drug addicts.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, was he a legitimate crack addict? Was he?
We don't know.
Is that fact, or we don't know?
We don't know.
We don't know if any of these guys are taken. Well, there might be rumors on the street. People on the street may have known, but most of these people are dead. It's all
in that case. If they were, crack addicts, it's kind of justified to a certain extent. You're not going to take him to rehab. You're going to kill him because your judgment is really flawed. If you're on that stuff.
And just
but it seems like he got rid of him because supposedly he. It seems like the thing is each of these people that he's accused of being addicted to crack cocaine, but they had also did something to upset Sammy by talking behind their back or supposedly doing something without informing Sammy. So he would use that as an excuse, but it was always some sort of personal beef that he would have with a friend.
And just so we do know, Nicky Scabetta was the sister of. It was his brother-in-law, and and that's not this person right here. I don't have a picture of him right now.
No.
Yeah,
but he killed his brother-in-law too, and the only reason the family ever found out is because Sammy flipped, and Sammy had to give some. Sammy was afraid that someone knew about the murder, and would say that Sammy left that out of his 302s when he agreed to give all this evidence. So he killed his brother-in-law. I mean,
supposedly another one had
another guy with a drug problem.
Yeah, another guy with a drug problem, and then he was also saying that he was using Sammy's name to borrow money from loan sharks, and then who knows?
He was gay or something, also.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. That we do know that's probably a fact, and so there's some other stories.
Unbelievable.
Well, there's a couple of fruity tooty stories about Sammy too.
Yeah.
So who knows what the story was behind that?
Right.
Sammy likes to make accusations, so I'm going to make one on Sammy. How's that?
Oh boy.
Okay. So I'm going to play. Listen, people, I'm going to play this part of this, and next week I'm going to do the other half of this show because there's so much to do on this tape. I'm sorry, this video. And I'm going to play this final part of what he says here, and then we'll talk about that.
when it gets 1, 2, 5, 7, where are we going? Bells are going up. What are we doing here? Killing all our own guys? Like Scarfo, like Gas Pipe, like the Colombos, like a lot of other people clipping their own guys, Lucchese guys. You know, what they did to that family, they killed Testa for 0-0 to get the Gambino guys, get them mad at the Gambino guys to start a war, open war. So, yeah, what was Gas Pipe's position? What was his position? He's underboss, right?
Yeah.
And what he's saying here is very important. He's saying that Casso was the underboss, and he's going to his boss and getting permission to kill people. He was doing the same thing Sammy was doing.
Yeah, they were both very similar. They were psychopaths, and they killed a lot of people. Same with the Philly mob, and so unfortunately, short guys that wanted to show they had power.
Short guy.
It's unbelievable.
You know, and when you here so we go from his brother-in-law, he kills him, and now Mikey's talking about everybody in the family, the Gambino family. Now, people that are part of that family are starting to be wiped out by Sammy.
Mm-hmm.
And Sammy, when John and him go to prison, and Sammy gets out and tells his story, he's laying it on the doorstep of John Gotti. Is John Gotti responsible? Yes, he's the boss. But I think it's like Nikki said, the biggest mistake he made is he gave Sammy too much power. Would you say that's pretty accurate?
Yeah, but that isn't it? It's supposed to be. He's just following, like James said before. He's following the system. He's having faith in the system. John, you can't blame him for it.
He's trusting. He's trusting
the system. Yeah.
Well, and also he was powerful. Sammy did have power on the street. So what happens if your underboss comes to you and he wants to kill someone? You as a boss, are you not going to give that permission? If not, then there's a problem there between you and your underboss. And then also, does that make you look weak? You know, that's one of the things that John Gotti had to be concerned about was, you know, does he appear weak? What does he do about his underboss? He's the one that created that monster. And so it's a big dilemma for John.
And
but it crept up on him. That's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So fast. It's not like one every 5 years. We're talking about what they have, an 8-year span, maybe 8. I don't even know the time frame.
Let's put it this way. After the Castellano hit, he killed.
What year was that? That was 85. Okay,
yes.
So go ahead.
Then he killed Nicky Cowboy in 86. DB got killed in 86. Yep. Mikey the Bats got killed in 86. Yep. Louis Miletto got killed in 88. Francis Oliveri got killed in 88. Willie Boy Johnson got killed in 88. Thomas Spinelli got killed in 89. Eddie Garofalo in 90. And Louis DeBono was the final one in 90 before people started getting arrested. So within a period of 86 to 90s, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 guys. Out of those 9 guys, they were all an important part of the Gambino family. Would you say that's pretty accurate, James?
Yeah, and only 3 of them were what I would call, based on the rules of Cosa Nostra, they were killed. You know, 2 of them were, I think all 3 of them that were killed, Oliveira, Johnson, and Spinelli, they were informants or suspected of that. So that's understandable.
Willie Johnson,
but the other ones weren't. They were personal revenge.
Willie Boy, you can understand. Willie Boy, you can understand. I mean, he sealed his fate when that came out.
Yeah.
He was ratting.
Yeah. Right.
Matter of fact, he was able to live. John Gotti let him live a little bit longer, and then people.
Well, if he'd left town, he was probably still been alive. That shows you. That's what people don't realize about John Gotti is that his best friend Angelo Ruggiero, if you remember, he was caught on tape and everything, and
should have been killed. He should have been
killed, but he said, "Well, I will put you on the shelf. You just can't come around."
Yeah,
and I think cancer saved him. He may have wound up like Willie Boy. I mean, people started going to to John, saying, "Look, Willie Boy's alive. This
Yeah.
doesn't look good."
No, made
You
you look
know,
weak.
So you see, John was following the cycle, the steps. He put him on the shelf because he had the power to make that decision. And he made a conscious decision to put him on the shelf. And Angelo was going to accept that because he knew what he did, right?
Hmm.
And then Willie Boy was the same thing. Go home. Willie Boy
But
came out of his house, was killed. He was comfortable in his
he
house.
had to get clipped. Bully Boy had to get
Yeah,
clipped.
he was in the
He was informed.
neighborhood. How
Yeah.
disrespectful is that? If he had
Yeah,
left,
no,
went to another state, maybe he would have survived. But you can't be on the street like that. That's
no,
just thumbing your
no,
nose
no,
at
no.
John Gotti's face.
That was a good decision. Good,
Hmm.
that was the right decision in the life. Olivieri, that was in the Bronx. I believe that's who Bobby
Yeah,
Covert
that's the
killed.
one you were
Yeah,
talking about. Yeah,
yeah.
that one.
That's who Bobby
Yeah.
Covert killed. Sammy was on that hit, and
Hmm.
he set up the hit. Sammy set up the hit. I don't know who initiated the hit, but
Hmm.
John wanted Bobby to go with Sammy on that hit to make
Yeah.
his bone, not to make his bones, because I think he was already a made guy, to move him up to captain. So I believe that's how it went.
Hmm. Yeah, that's the one you were talking about. And
Yeah,
I don't know much about that story. I know that you know more about those guys. I
yeah,
think more of the Jersey guys involved in
right,
that. So,
right.
Would you say
yeah.
that's pretty much Sammy? Pretty much betrayed everybody that he was close to, and starting with a Castellano, and I mean, Sammy did come through Castellano, and after he came out of the Colombo family, he
He just was
betrayed
on a
him.
tear. He was on a
He was
tear
on
after
there.
that. Apparently, that's what it looks
Yeah,
like. He
and
was on
then
a tear.
everybody he knew. I mean, your brother-in-law, a 16-year-old kid. I mean,
Hmm.
people.
That's what. Go ahead.
What's funny? It's like when I see this and I study this, and you start understanding the mind of Sammy Gravano, it's pretty scary.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
he's a psychopath.
and then
It's
he gets out of
this.
prison.
Yeah, he
I'm
gets
sorry, he
out.
gets
Right.
out of prison and starts a drug ring with his own children.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was. It was. There's gangsters, and so I think Sammy has said it. There's gangsters and there is racketeers, right?
Hmm.
And Sammy's apparently both a gangster and a racketeer. There's also gangsters, racketeers, and one thing that's missing is gentlemen. So you have
Yeah.
a reputation on the street as a gangster, racketeer, also a gentleman. That comes into play too. How you handle the business and your aspect of it. And that's what the shelf is for. A lot of these guys that Sammy wanted to get permission to clip could have been shelved. And
Hmm.
that's part of and these guys go in knowing they can get shelved one day or killed by their own brother. But that's what the shelf is for. Now, Mikey Scars took the shelf, from what I understand, and I don't know, took it personal. And that's what led him to that bad decision, in his own words,
Right.
that bad decision, that
Right.
punk move. I think being shelved really tore at his heart. And I think that goes back to because of his lineage.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so you're thinking that so his brother-in-law, he kills his brother-in-law. He kills. Now, what was Frank Fiella? Was that a personal revenge? Would you say, James?
That was, yeah, it's kind of interesting on that one. That was a guy that was from Czechoslovakia, wanted to buy his club and offered him $1 million. And apparently the guy was eccentric and maybe gay as well. And the guy ended up giving the money to Sammy, and then they had Michael DeBat clip him immediately.
Wow.
Outside the club, and Sammy claims he was disrespecting him and
Yep.
took over the club, and
Hmm.
which, when you really think about it, that's Sammy's story.
Well, and
I
he
can't.
didn't have permission to make that. Paul did not give him permission. He did not go to Paul asking permission. And then Sammy was saying, "Oh well, I did because I knew this would get out in the news, and I wanted to insulate you from this situation." It was an excuse. You don't sup- he should have went to Paul to get the go ahead to whack this guy, but he did it. It was a business move. It was a personal move for Sammy. It wasn't based on Cosa Nostra.
And you believe there was some money involved in there that went into Sammy's account somewhere?
Oh yeah, it's $1 million. The guys paid it, and then
Oh,
yeah, and the guy had already bought it and was making changes to the to the office and all that, and I guess Sammy just wanted to take the club back. I don't think they ever actually officially did it with the lawyers, but the money had changed hands. So yeah,
It sounds like to me, Sammy was became a millionaire in the 80s.
hmm yeah, he became pretty powerful, before Castellano, but I mean before John Gotti, but it was John Gotti that actually got him to that next level of having all the power that he did.
And he killed his
Yeah.
brother-in-law, took over that
Mhm.
business, and then
hmm
with Frank Fiella, he gets money from him.
Yeah.
So before he even goes on the hit of Castellano, this man has a lot of money.
Yeah, and about 2/3, probably 12 of the 19 murders were not based on any sort of Cosa Nostra. That was based on revenge or personal reasons. And then, supposedly just the one guy that Sammy ever actually pulled the trigger, but
I'm
every
gonna,
guy,
I'm
weird.
gonna close this out, guys, when I talk about this.
Yeah.
All right.
Do you think that a lot of people were let out? Some bad people went into the program, and the feds brought them in. Do you think Sammy was the worst of the ones brought in to the program?
It's proven. I mean, I think it's pretty proven. He didn't, as far as committing crimes again, yes. Violence, no. But, it doesn't change the criminal mind. Getting a pass like that and you know, getting accepted as being a rat or a stool pigeon or a informer or a cooperator, it gives you a pass on the actions that you did. It does not change your brain and how you are a criminal mind, especially at that level.
hmm
So he was the biggest failure of the system, I believe. That's just my opinion, I
Yeah,
think.
he was a success as being an informant, but
Oh,
he was a
oh,
failure as being out in the road street after he was
oh.
released.
He was a huge success on his own, other than getting pinched with the drugs. He succeeded on what he wanted to do,
And
but
here
he
he is
failed
in
because they caught
YouTube.
up to him. But as a system wise, the system that you're asking about, biggest failure ever. I think the
And
biggest
here's
failure
this
ever.
guy. Here's this guy. He walks into YouTube. More stuff falls into his lap. And, nobody knows how much money he's making on here. Only he knows that. But the fact of the matter is, he has a 500,000 subscribers. And I know I got a tiny little show. I make a little bit of money, and I can only imagine what the money he makes having a 500,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
gonna wear out. It's gonna dwindle out. It's gonna go away. The popularity, because obviously, as you see, Mikey Scars is able to debunk a lot of it. Who
Yeah.
knows how far he's gonna carry it for? But I do think he'll definitely drop off a little bit. That's
Uh,
just a thought.
so, Tommy, if I do a second part of this show, you'd want to be involved in that?
Sure, anytime, Lee.
Well, I appreciate it, Tommy. I'm going to let you go now, but I appreciate you being here.
You got
Thank
it.
you
I
so
just want
much.
to add. I want to add one thing.
Yes.
We're not speaking. We're not speaking as professionals. We're not speaking as if we were there. We're giving
Right.
opinions. We're taking some data and discussing. That's only what we're doing here, right, guys? This
Yep.
is basically what we're
Yep.
doing.
And Tommy, I'm tell people about your show, and I'm going to put your link underneath here.
Yeah.
But tell them what you do
I
on
ju-
your show.
I just have a little show, just a general show, variety stuff. Have coffee in the morning, shoot the shit
Yeah,
about
but
this, that, and the other
you
thing.
got that big ass mic in front of you, that big comfortable looking chair, that big
Yeah, I'm
poster
cozy.
behind you.
I'm cozy.
You're thinking big. I mean, that whole setup is pretty awesome looking.
I love
Nice,
it.
huh?
Mhm.
And then Frank Sinatra right there.
Because I'm a
hmm
Sinatra fan. Yeah,
Okay, and what's in the bottle right behind Frank?
that's amaretto right there.
Can we see it?
Oh yeah, that's amaretto. That's a good one. Yeah, Amore amaretto. You
And
can only take a little bit at a time, as you can see.
so what do you take, a shot at a time, pretty much?
Yeah, a little sip of that. You take a sip. Like these little shot glasses that I have. You have a little sip. That's all.
You should do a little
And then
thing
a
on your
cigar. I
show.
like Macanudo cigars.
hmm
So you should have a little giveaway on your show where hang out the day with Stiggs. Win it.
Okay.
So, I'm serious. Do a thing where somebody wins, where they could spend a day with Stiggs.
All
Because I
right.
think you're a pretty cool guy, and I think that
Oh
would
wow,
go
thank
over.
you.
I think that would spend the time with Stiggs, get drunk, have
Yeah, but
cigars.
That's it.
Meet,
Shoot the shit.
go to topless bars and meet your future wife. Tommy,
All
thank
right,
you so much
guys.
for being here, my man.
Thank
you
you.
for having me on. It was enjoyable. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And I'll
Thank
have this
you.
up tomorrow.
Okay,
All right.
sounds
Take care,
great.
my man.
Later,
Bye.
guys.
Thanks. Bye.
So, how did you like that, James, doing the show today with Steaks?
Yeah, no, I really like that. He's got a lot of knowledge, especially of New Jersey, and so be love to hear more about his neighborhood and some of the things he went through.
Yeah, and so I appreciate everything. People, just so you know, James does some of these with me. We do the wrestling shows together, but we don't
Yeah.
do too many. We're gonna get busy on that.
We are.
On our wrestling show right now, we're gonna do a video most likely tomorrow, and it's gonna be on who, James?
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Okay, and a very interesting life, right?
Yes.
It's going to be
very
interesting to watch that. So,
Mhm.
people, if you're on this channel, you can go to Dancing with the Dancing with the Devil, Lee Cole Wrestling Podcast,
Yeah.
and sub to it. We're going to be putting up some more videos, and we're going to start doing some lives there again.
We are.
But things are getting kind of crazy here at times.
Mhm.
And I like to thank Michael Scars and RJ for being nice enough for letting us use their video.
Yeah.
And I will
Thank you
put
very
the link,
much.
and I will put the link of their show down there also. So I got to
Mhm.
set up a lot of links on this because there's a lot of
Yep.
people that help with this show.
Yes.
James, when we take apart Sammy and what he's done in his life, it doesn't sound like he's a very good guy, does it?
No, it doesn't. And it's just amazing how how much you learn through. It's just something new every day. And it's just amazing to me. We have an hour show on this stuff, and we just scratch the surface. It's just pretty
We scratched the
interesting.
surface. And
Yeah.
Sammy's had a free ride on here. No one's ever come up against him.
Yep.
Now he has someone coming up against him.
He
And,
does.
but people, with that, I'm going to say thank you so much. Please hit the like button. It's important that you hit the like. Please sub to this channel if you haven't. And I'll put everybody else's show underneath here that has helped with this show today. Everybody take care, and I'm going to shut the show down now.